Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna,
Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare
Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya 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 Radha Rama Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Radha Rama Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Radha Rama Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Sachinandana, Jai Sachinandana, Jai Sachinandana, Gaura Hari. Jai Sachinandana, Gaura Hari. Jai Sachinandana, Jai Sachinandana, Jai Sachinandana, Jai Sachinandana, Jai Sachinandana, Gaura Hari. Jai Sachinandana, Gaura Hari. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna
His complexion. Do that same tune. His complexion is the hue of fresh cream tinged with kumkum. He is the ever-fresh Cupid who shoots arrows of newly blossoming flowers. He bears newer and newer moods of emotional ecstasies. He is fond of performing novel dances. He makes ever new jokes that cause much laughter. His brilliant luster is like freshly cast gold. I bow down to Gaura, the beautiful son of Mother Shachi. He is endowed with the ever-fresh love of Godhead. His radiant luster is like the color of fresh butter. His fresh attire is arranged in ever-new fashions. He relishes ever-new mellows of love for Krishna. He shines in ninefold new ways while executing the ninefold processes of devotion. He is permeated with the most auspicious loving nature. I bow down to Gaura, the beautiful son of Mother Shachi. He is absorbed in devotion to Shri Hari. He maintains the chanting of the names of Hari. While chanting, he counts the holy names on the fingers of his hands. He is addicted to the name of Hari. He always has tears of love welling in his eyes. I bow down to Gaura, the beautiful son of Mother Shachi. He is always removing the suffering of material existence for mankind. He is the goal of life for persons who are dedicated to their supreme interest. He inspires men to become like honeybees, eager for the honey of Krishna Prema. He removes the burning fever of the material world. I bow down to Gaura, the beautiful son of Mother Shachi. He motivates pure devotion unto himself. He is the most attractive to his beloved servitors. By his dramatic dancing, he exhibits the characteristics of the king of paramours. He causes the minds of beautiful young village women to dance. I bow down to Gaura, the beautiful son of Mother Shachi. He plays kartals as his throat emits sweet, melodious sounds, and the vibrant notes of the veena are softly played. He thus inspires the devotees to perform dramatic dancing that is infused with aspects of his own devotional service. I bow down to Gaura, the beautiful son of Mother Shachi. He is accompanied by the Sankirtan movement, which is the religious practice for the age of Kali. He is the son of Nanda Maharaj, come again. He is the extraordinarily brilliant ornament of the earth. His preaching mood is suitably adapted to the cycle of birth and death. His consciousness is fixed in meditation on his own form of Krishna. He is always accompanied by his transcendental abode. I bow to Gaura, the beautiful son of Mother Shachi. His eyes, the soles of his feet, and his clothing are reddish like the color that heralds the rising sun. As he utters his own names, his voice falters. He awakens a sweet flavor to life throughout the universe. I bow down to Gaura, the beautiful son of Mother Shachi. Shri Sachi Sutak Ashtakam ki jai. Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Shri Gaur Punima ki jai. Shri Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Gaur Premanande. I offer my respectful obeisances to His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada and to all the devotees who are gathered here today. You are all Vaishnavas and therefore you're the most worshipable in the universe. And to everyone who's joined us online from various places around the world. Hare Krishna. This gathering is especially to celebrate the Gaura Punima, the appearance day of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whose character and purpose for appearing in this world is described in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Just as the sun and moon rise on the horizon of Gauda simultaneously, similarly Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda are described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityanando Sahodito, Gaura Dai Pushpavanto Chitro Shando Tamonudao. If the sun and moon were to rise at the same time on the horizon, the illumination would be complete everywhere. And similarly, Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda appear in the age of Kali Yuga. And they illuminate the innermost portion of every living entity's heart in order to give them spiritual knowledge. So Krishnadas Kaviraj begins his book on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in this way. Actually, he begins by saying, Vande Guru Nisha Bhaktan Ishani Shavatarakam Tapakasham Statachakti Krishna Chaitanya Samjakam. He offers first, before even mentioning Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda and their magnificence, he offers his obeisances to his gurus. Vande Gurun means that plurality of gurus, means his Vartmana Pradakshaka Guru, the guru who shows him the path, who shows one the path for devotional service. And then the Shiksha Gurus, those who instruct one about the science of Krishna consciousness. And then the Diksha Guru, one who gives the mantra, like planting of a seed and the watering of a seed. And then he goes on to describe the life of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his appearance in this world, and the way that he came to fulfill the innermost desire of and his own purposes. Actually, Krishna comes to this world regularly, as he says in the Bhagavad Gita, Janma karma chame divyam evam yoviti tatvata tyakva deham punar janma naiti mameti suarjuna. He tells Arjuna that I appear in this world, but not like an ordinary person. I'm not forced by the modes of material nature, but my appearance is divine. It's transcendental. And anyone who understands the transcendental nature of my appearance also doesn't take birth again in this material world, but he goes back to the spiritual world. Tyakva deham punarjanma. After giving up the body, then he goes back to the spiritual world. And it doesn't have to take birth again in the material world. This is one of the very significant points of Krishna's appearance in this world, is that simply by understanding him, by hearing from the Bhagavad Gita and other relevant scriptures and from the devotees, and practicing Krishna consciousness, if one becomes aware of Krishna and knows him in truth through the science, then one's no longer obligated to go through the cycle of repeated birth and death. So Krishna comes in many different forms in the material world, just to give everyone an opportunity to go back home, back to Godhead. But he also comes for his own purposes. As mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Anarpita Charim Chira Karana Tirna Kalau. Anarpita Charim Chira Karana Yavatirna Kalau Samarpayitum Tojvala Rasam Supaktishriyam. This is an explanation of why one of the internal reasons that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes, because he thinks that for a long time I've not given people the knowledge of my very intimate pastimes in Vrindavan. Anarpita means for a long time. Anarpita Chirim Chira Karuna Yavatirna Kalau. And so in the age of Kali, he comes, Samarpayitam Unatojvala Rasam Sapakti Shriyam. And he teaches a kind of devotional service that is very rarely taught, and that is with an understanding of spontaneous devotional service that takes place in Vrindavan, in Vrajadam. And this, of course, was the purpose of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as mentioned in the Shastra, the Vaishnava Shastras, like the Chaitanya Manjusha, tells about the various points of the philosophy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that he most coveted and then he put forward. This is described, Raja Bhagavan Rajesha Tanayas Tadama Vrindavana Ramya Kachid Upasana Vrajavidu Vargena Vokalpita. Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam Prema Pumarto Mahan Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Matamidam Tatradara Navdara. In this verse is described the various tenets of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings. So first he says that there's no difference between Krishna and his abode. Rajo Bhagavan Vrajesha Taniyas Tadama Vrindavana. Vrindavan and Krishna are the same. And then he says, Ramya Kachidupasana Vrajavidu Vargina Vokulpita, that the highest form of devotion and the process of worshiping Krishna that is the most perfect was exhibited by the gopis of Vrindavan. And then he says, Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam, that Srimad Bhagavatam is the perfect scripture, it's a spotless Purana. And we take this as the ultimate truth and the ultimate authority on everything. Then Prema Pumarto Mahan, that the goal of life is to attain prema, pure love for Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Matamidam. These were the opinions of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he came with very specific points to bring to the world and with a desire to reveal his own abode. And then the secret of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was revealed by Kaviraj Goswami at the outset of the Sri Chaitanya Charanamrita when he says, Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikritir Hladini Shakti Rasman Ekat Manav Afi Bhuvi Pura Deha Deham Gatau Tau Chaitanyakyam Prakatanam Adana Tadvayam Chaikyamatam Radha Bhava Suvalitam Krishna Nami Surupam. That Radha and Krishna are two transcendentalists who are eternally engaging in their pastimes in the spiritual world, but they've become one in the body of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is later also revealed by Ramananda Roy when he says, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahi Anya. Radha and Krishna are eternally the divine couple. They join together in the body of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikritir Hladini Shakti Rasmad. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes, this is the time at which the Yuga Avatar appears. And as Rupa Goswami describes in his Lakhu Bhagavatamrita, there's the Brihat Bhagavatamrita and the Lakhu Bhagavatamrita. So the Brihat Bhagavatamrita is a much bigger book, and that's why it's called Brihat. And then the Laghu. In the Laghu Bhagavatamrita, Rupa Goswami ties up a lot of loose ends and describes from various shastras how it is that Krishna appears in this world and for what reasons he appears. And in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita, he describes how Lord Chaitanya is in this Kali Yuga is a very special. Is making a very special appearance, because in most appearances in the Kali Yuga, which is the time to spread Yuga Dharma, every Yuga has its particular dharma, a way in which one should practice in order to get the best result. For instance, in Satya Yuga, there's the practice of meditation, and in the Treta Yuga, there's the practice of doing yajna. And in Dwapara Yuga, there's opulent temple worship. But in Kali Yuga, because in this particular age, all those other kinds of sacrifices aren't very effective, there's the chanting of the holy names, the spreading the Yuga Dharma of chanting Hare Krishna. And in this particular Kali Yuga, the Lord Krishna appears himself because he has some internal reasons for coming. And these are explained by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, and he says that it's incidental that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in this particular Kali Yuga spreads the Sankirtan movement. Because it's the time to do it anyway, so he does it. But he comes in this Kali Yuga, which is just 500 years ago, he appeared, a little over 500 years ago, for his own reasons. Rupa Goswami writes and proves through Shastra that in many Kali Yugas, a living entity who's empowered appears to spread the Yuga Dharma. But in this Kali Yuga, Krishna appears himself. And he has some internal reasons. So these are very esoteric, but they're important to remember on Gaura Punima, that Krishna has an existential crisis, and that is that he's the supreme enjoyer. However, he notes that as the supreme enjoyer, he cannot enjoy the kind of happiness that his devotees enjoy. He wants to. In fact, it's described in the Shastra how even in Dwarka, sometimes he'll see his reflection in a jeweled pillar or a very shiny marble floor, and he'll think, who is this? It's so beautiful. I wish I could embrace this form. And he becomes overwhelmed with desire to enjoy the form. But after all, it's himself. And then he sees how the devotees, especially Srimati Radharani, is the repository of bhakti. And Kaviraj Goswami describes how Srimati Radharani and her associates, in beholding Krishna and feeling love for him, he's the object, and they're the ones who are observing the ashraya and the vishaya. And they enjoy 10 million times more than Krishna. That is, the servitors of Krishna, because they're the ones who are drinking in the beauty and the sweetness of Krishna, are getting the highest enjoyment. But this is a contradiction, because Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. So how is it that somebody's enjoying more than he? So in order to experience the same kind of happiness that his devotees enjoy, he comes in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he's Krishna himself, but he's appeared with the sentiment and the effulgence of Srimati Radharani, because Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahi Anya. So Krishna comes in the mood of Srimati Radharani to enjoy himself. So the supreme enjoyer comes as the enjoyed and pretends to be a devotee, and at the same time he spreads the Yuga Dharma. And he enacts his Acharya Lila. He shows the process of devotional service. He teaches it to Rupa and Sanatan and others, like Ramananda Roy. Of course, we notice that Ramananda Roy teaches Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and that sometimes Mahaprabhu, whenever he's glorified, he always glorifies his devotees. It's everything I know I learned from Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Ramananda Roy, Swarup Damodar. They're all teaching me. So on Gaura Punima, we can remember these esoteric truths of the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And anyone who takes to the process of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu can make advancement very easily, even in this Kali Yuga, when there are a lot of obstacles. Some of the obstacles are mentioned early on in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Prayana upayasha shabya kalavasmin yuge jana manda sumanda matayo manda bhagya hipadrita. In the iron age of Kali, men have but short lives. They're quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed. So how is one to take to the process of spiritual life in the age of Kali? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed that the infectious chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, which is later on in the Chaitanya Charitamrita described as Prem Sankirtan, because the devotees who are chanting are not chanting for liberation, but they're chanting in order to glorify the Lord, and out of love they chant. So this is a very special kind of chanting. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he appeared, induced the whole world to chant. You know that on the day that he appeared in this world, he made it coincide with the eclipse of the moon. And in India, when there's an eclipse Everyone covers everything, all the food grains, water, everything in their house. They shutter their houses. If you're in Vrindavan and it comes, all the shops close. They shutter the shops because it's well known astrologically when the eclipse comes, this diffuse light of the eclipse, which is very inauspicious, contaminates everything. And all the people during the eclipse, in order to avoid being contaminated, go to the Ganga or some sacred river, and they submerge themselves for the full time of the eclipse. And while they're in the Ganga, they chant, Hare, 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 Hare. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared, everybody went to the Ganga. And they stayed submerged in the Ganga, and they continued to chant, Hare, Hare. And at that time, of course, in Navadvip, there was a multicultural society. There were a lot of Muslims there, because they were the rulers at that time. They held all the high political posts, and they also were chanting Hare Hare, because they heard the devotees and all the Hindus chanting Hare Hare. And so when the Muslims heard the chanting of Hare Hare, they also said Hare Hare. Because when people hear Hare Hare, they can't help it. They just say, what's that Hare Hare? And someone says, what are you chanting Hare Hare? He said, why are you chanting Hare Hare? People can't help it. In fact, there's a pastime mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that when Gadadhar Das, not our Gadadhar Pandit, but one of the associates of Sri Nityananda, one time he ran into the house of the Muslim king in an angry mood, and he said, you chant Hare Krishna or I'll chop off your head. He was just a little kind of a cowherd boy type of devotee, but he went in this very strong mood. And some of the guards who saw him burst into the foyer of the king's palace, then went and got the king, who came down and said, what are you doing here? And he said, you chant Hare Krishna or I'll kill you. He saw this little Vaishnava there, and he said, listen, you come back tomorrow and I'll chant Hare Krishna. And Gadadhar Das started dancing and said, why come back tomorrow? You already chanted Hare Krishna. It's too late. This is the mood of the devotees, as they know that anybody who even touches the Hare Krishna Mahamantra with their tongue become benedicted. Jayanamadeya Muni Vrindagehe Janaranjanaya Paramakshaраkrite Tomarad Arad Api Managudiritam Nikilogra Tapapatalim Balimpasi. Rupa Goswami writes in his Namashtakam that if one chants even one time Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
then unlimited sinful reactions are destroyed. And that person, even if that person chants in with a derisive mood, they're just saying, oh, you Hare Krishnas, get out of here. He said Hare Krishna. And throughout the Shastra we hear this also in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Devahuti, when speaking to her son, who is her son? Kapilide, the Supreme Personality of God, she said, Yanamadeha Shramanad Kirtanad Yat Smarad Yat Pravanad Api Kuchit Svadopi Sadya Savanaya Kalpate Kutakmadaste Bhagavan Nudarshanad. It's so wonderful that what to speak of somebody who sees the Supreme Lord face to face. If anybody just chants Hare Krishna, then that person, even if they're from a low class, they become purified. And she goes on, oh, but the shra pachato garyanya jiva gre vartati namatubhyam te pusta paste juhuvusasna arya pramanuchur nama granantiete. Even if they just say it a little bit, even one time with the tip of their tongue, she says, then you can assume that person has already performed all kinds of pilgrimage to sacred places, has performed all the Vedic rituals, has done sacrifices, all of these things, to be able to say Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So this philosophy of the holy name, the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to teach this. And then he taught by example. Just by his appearance, he made everybody chant. Everybody chant. And when he was a little baby, he also induced everyone to chant. Because babies in general are kind of cute. Everyone likes to look at them, play around with them and stuff, coochie coochie. But when the Supreme Personality of Godhead comes as a baby, people are mesmerized. In fact, the devas come. They're lining up to see, just have a glimpse of the beautiful lotus face of the Lord. There's nothing as attractive as the Lord. And when he comes as a baby, the people are overwhelmed. So they're crowding in from everywhere just to see him. But little Nimai, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's name when he was a baby, he would only cry and cry and cry, and then everyone figured out the only way to get him to stop crying was to say, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And when they start, then he'd start smiling. And so this became the pastime in Navadvip, that everyone would come and chant Hare Krishna. He caused everyone to chant, even as he was a baby. And then, of course, as he grew up, he became known as a great scholar. Of course, before he was a scholar, there's something that happened in his family. Before his elder brother was born, there were 9 daughters that were born at childbirth. And then finally, Shankaranya was born, his elder brother, and he was a great scholar. Actually, he was an expansion of Lord Balaram. Just as Balaram appears first before Krishna, so similarly, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's older brother, who's an expansion of Balaram, appears before he does. And he used to go regularly to the house of Advaita Acharya. Advaita Acharya, who is incarnation of Mahavishnu, appears before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he's the reason that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appears in this world. And Advaita Acharya, and this is a very practical thing I'm about to tell you. You want to hear something practical? Mm-hmm. That will change your life? In a positive way?
Yes.
Okay, this is, Advaita Acharya teaches by example. He's called Advaita because he's non-different from Krishna, and he's called Acharya because he teaches the path to come to Krishna. So, Advaita Acharya, he's very much senior to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's elderly when Mahaprabhu comes into the world. And he would hold at his house, he had 2 places he stays. One is in Shantipur, and the other, he has a place, Advaita Bhavan, which is right near Shivasangam, right near Navadvip. So these 2 places. He would also open class on Bhagavad Gita every day. And he would teach the Bhagavad Gita. And people would come and listen to the Bhagavad Gita as it is from Advaita Acharya. And from this, they became devotees. So he started a Krishna consciousness movement, just like you're doing here in Sacramento, by holding open class. This is the secret to spreading the Krishna consciousness movement. Anyone can go anywhere in the world. And if you just hold open class on Bhagavad Gita and teach everyone to chant Hare Krishna, then you'll start a Krishna conscious explosion that starts from that place where you're teaching Bhagavad Gita. So Advaita Acharya did that. But he felt that he needed a little help, because every Sangha needs a little help. You get your little program going, then you think, we need a little help. So Advaita Acharya was thinking, we need help. And so who could come? Krishna's got to come himself and help. So he began praying that Lord Krishna himself would incarnate, because he saw that the people were so fallen. Even in Navadvip, which is known as the seat of learning, he saw people were very ostentatious. They were spending all their money on big fancy weddings. They were worshiping all kinds of demigods, fanciful forms. Even they were worshiping snakes. And they were speculating in all crazy ways about worship. And they weren't getting the essence of devotional service, just as a small group of devotees was. So he, out of compassion, because he's Mahavishnu, and Mahavishnu is indirectly related with the material world. He's watching it go on again and again. As he exhales, it's all manifests, and all the living entities come out, and they try again to set up a little shop here in the material world. They get a little betel nut shop going. And then they think, I'm making a few rupees, I'm happy, everything's okay. And then they get all dissolved again. And he feels great compassion for all these people, all these living entities that are trying to enjoy the material world. He's Mahavishnu, he's connected to the material world in that way. So he feels it deep in his heart that these people have to be saved. So he begins to cry out to the Lord to please come, please come. And this is the other secret. The first secret is you hold open class in Bhagavad Gita and teach Bhagavad Gita as it is. Don't change the message, just present it the way you heard it from the disciplic succession. It'll be effective. And the second thing is you have to pray. But how do you have to pray? You have to pray hard. When you pray hard, like Advaitacharya, see, he figured out from the scripture, he found a loophole. Said that the Lord, when you offer the Lord some tulsi leaves and Ganges water, then he sells himself to such a devotee. So that this devotee offered me Ganges water and tulsi leaf, then I give myself to this person. So when he found this verse, actually he remembered it. And when he was considering how to get the Lord to come, so every day before his Shalagam Shila, he would offer this Ganges water and tulsi leaves, and in loud cries he would call out for the Lord to please come and save all the living entities in the material world. So anyone can do that. You can in the privacy of your own house, or you can go and sit by the Sacramento River and worship your deity, or you have the Jamuna here too? Yeah. You have the Jamuna, you have the Ganga. You can go anywhere and you can make these loud cries for the Lord, please appear, please come. And the Lord will make his appearance in amazing ways. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had come to this world, later on he would tell the devotees, he used to call Advaitacharya Nada, because he would keep a shaved head. So he called him Nada. So he said, Nada, he called me to come to this world. And so when the elder brother of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to go to the classes of Advaitacharya and became so inspired that he was detached from the world and thinking, I only want to go to Krishna. And then he went home one night and he heard his parents talking that we better get him married. So he said, that's it. He slipped out the next morning and never came back. He took sannyas. So his parents were heartbroken. So then they saw that Nimai, he was also starting to hang around with the Vaishnavas and with Advaitacharya. And he was just about to go to school and start learning all the Shastras. So his father, Jagannath Mishra, says, no school for Nimai. If he goes to school, he's going to figure out this whole material world is a scam, and he's going to take off too. And we won't have any children. We won't have even one son left. So no school. Nimai, your school's over. So Nimai, understanding that his school had been canceled for good, he began to vandalize the neighborhood. So he had nothing else to do. So he would go out with his friends at night, and one of his friends and he would put a blanket over each other, and they would walk together like a bull. They pretended like they were a big bull. And they would go to the house of people in Navadvip where there were banana trees, and as this pretend bull, they would start smashing down the banana trees. And when the people inside saw what was going on, they would raise an alarm, come running out, ho, ah! And then they would throw the blanket off and run away laughing. And then some nights they would go out, and at that time people didn't have indoor washrooms. They had to go outside. And so Nimai and his friends would tie their doors shut so they couldn't get out. And they would wait out in the yard. And the people there said, trying to get outside, let me out, let me out. And Nimai would laugh with his friends and run off and leave them locked in their houses. And in this way, he went around wreaking havoc all over Navadvip. And then one day, when Mother Sachi came to the backyard of their house, she saw that Nimai was sitting on a pile of abandoned pots. This was considered to be very unclean. So the pots, after being used, considered untouchable. But Nimai was there not only playing on them, but smearing the soot from the pots all over his body. And the author of Chaitanya Bhagavat describes that Nimai, although of beautiful golden color, we just heard in this bhajan, his body's like butter. But now, smeared with this soot from these abandoned pots, he looked like a blue sapphire, just like Krishna. he's so beautiful. Even when he's smeared with soot, he becomes even more beautiful. But his mother came out, and she was aghast. She said, Nimai, what are you doing sitting on these pots? He said, don't you know these are untouchable? He said, how can they be untouchable? You cooked food for Vishnu in this. It can't be untouchable. Besides, whatever I touch, wherever I go, that place becomes purified. Nimai, what are you talking about? And then he began talking Mayavad philosophy. He said, what's the difference? The earth, the pot, it's all one. And she said, who's taught you this nonsense? He said, what do you expect? You don't let me go to school. And then the neighbors were watching all this fun, and they came over, what? You don't let him go to school? He said, which one of your enemies told you not to have him go to school? And when Jagannath Mishra came home and saw the neighbors and what was going on, they all said, oh, don't worry, send your child to school. He's such an intelligent boy, he should go to school. So finally, Jagannath Mishra relented and sent Nimai back to school. So he went to school, and everything he learned, everything he was taught by his teacher Gangadas, he immediately learned. Any complicated Sanskrit writings, the verbal roots, whatever he saw, he immediately learned it. It became better than anybody else. In fact, he would go around and challenge everybody. He became very condescending towards everyone. And some of the older boys, so there was big competitions at the time, they used to call each other out, and they would get in arguments, and then we'd beat each other and run away up and down the Ganges. So Nimai, with his gang of students, people started following because he's cool, he knows everything. And so they would follow behind him and say, watch this. And then Nimai would come up to the older students, and they'd say, Nimai, why are you so conceited? And Nimai would say, just question me. Go ahead and ask me some questions. And they say, Nimai, what's the meaning of verbal roots? And Nimai would then give such an eloquent explanation of the meaning of verbal roots. And even the older students, they would say, Nimai, that's pretty good. And then he'd say, no, it's not. That's wrong. And then he would reverse exactly what he said. And then they say, that's even more amazing. He said, that's wrong too. You don't know anything. And he would twist it back and forth and back and forth. And then he would walk away, leaving everyone just absolutely bewildered by his superior intelligence. So then Nimai, when he went finally, his father passed away. And when he went for the Shraddha ceremony in Gaya, there he met his spiritual master, Srila Ishwarapuri. And when he met his spiritual master, he became very humble and submissive. He surrendered to Srila Ishwarapuri. In fact, there's a pastime when he met his guru, before he took initiation. His guru knew that Nimai was such a great scholar and pundit, so he asked a question. He had written a book, and he asked Nimai that, please, you look through this book. You know everything about Sanskrit poetry. By this time, Nimai had defeated the Digvijay Pandit. He became famous. Even the great scholars, the Bhattacharyas in Navadvip, he was a hometown hero. Because as you know, Navadvip was known to be, it was like the MIT of India. Everyone's like, that's the highest place. And this Digvijay Pandit, he used to go all over India. He was empowered by Saraswati, because he did a lot of puja and austerities, and Saraswati benedicted him that she would appear on his tongue anytime he would do a debate. So he had come to Navadvip to defeat all the scholars there. And if he had done that, then it would have been known, like, there's no one better anywhere. And when the scholars in Navadvip heard that he was coming, they started making excuses. I think I gotta go. My mom's calling me. I gotta go to another town. They were decamping and going other places. But Nimai arranged so that when he entered Navadvip, Nimai was sitting with his students on the bank of the Ganges and having a conversation with them. And then Digvijay Pandit saw him there and became overwhelmed with the beauty of the scene. Nimai sitting there, he had one ankle cross, sitting in a casual mood with everyone seated around him, admiring him, and he's like, who's this? He wanted to know. So this is Nimai Pandit. So this Digvijay was very puffed up as he defeated everyone. And Nimai Pandit greeted him as a great hero. And then he became even more puffed up. And Nimai then asked him, so please, you're the greatest of scholars. Tell us some verses glorifying Mother Ganga. And this Digvijay Pandit, he composed on the spot 100 verses and recited them out loud. Now, Radhika Raman Prabhu, you know the great Radhika Raman Prabhu, the great scholar who grew up in Krishna consciousness. He learned to read from the Bhagavatam, and now he's a professor and is a very powerful devotee. So he was telling us how one of his professors, who was an older man, his professor of Sanskrit that he had met, he said, actually this thing where we hear the Digvijay Pandit composing verses on the spot, he said, this is not mythology. He said, this professor I have, even now in this era, and before 500 years ago, the environment and the learning, and it was much higher caliber. But still there are people like this who grew up in a certain environment and they're so expert, their intelligence is so sharp. He said this professor, when he read Prabhupada's, he's an Indian gentleman, when he read Prabhupada's Lilamrita, he became so impressed with the life of Srila Prabhupada. He said, he was saying throughout the semesters, well, Radhika was his student, he was saying, I'm going to write some verses to glorify your guru. He said, oh, write 100 verses. And Radhika became very excited. He was thinking, this is going to be wonderful. So he kept checking in with him, just not pushing him too much, but just, did you write the verses? And, oh no, I haven't done it, I'm thinking about it. And the semester was coming to the end. He had about a week left, and he was thinking, oh, it was a nice thing, it was a nice thought, but nobody's going to write 100 verses in a few days. And when the semester ended, he came to him and he said, here, I wrote it. 100 verses. And he read us some of the verses, about 20 of the verses. The most eloquent poetry that he composed just on the spot within a few days, glorifying Srila Prabhupada in amazing ways, amazing insights into his life. Even though he hadn't met him, he just read the Lilamrita. And so this kind of great learning is altogether possible. And this Digvijay Pandit then recited these verses, he composed and then spoke them. And then Nimai, this young boy and elementary student compared to this Digvijay, he said, this is amazing what you've done. Now let's look at it. And let's talk about some of the relative ornaments and then some of the faults. And the Digvijay, faults? What are you talking about? There's no faults in any of this. And Nimai said, no, if we look carefully, we can understand. And so he said, what faults are you talking about? Then Nimai picked one verse out of the 100, and he recited it. And the Digvijay, how did you do that? He was starting to get amazed at this. And Nimai said, it's not a big thing. Some people like you, they can compose sound. I just happen to be a Shrutidar. It means I'm blessed that anything I hear, I remember. But then he began to pick apart the verse and show the faults. And the Digvijay couldn't say anything. His goddess, Saraswati, then would not allow him to speak. And all the young students there began to laugh. And Nimai said, no, don't laugh. He's a great scholar. He protected his honor. And that night when the Digvijay went home, he had a dream. And Mother Saraswati appeared to him and said, you have met my master, therefore I could not appear on your tongue. And that is not just my master, but the master of all the devas and the master of every living entity. You've met the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And there was something about the experience, because it was so complete, the defeat and the amazing way that Nimai had done this, and then the confirmation of Mother Saraswati. The next day he came back to the Digvijay, to Nimai, and offered his prostrated obeisances. And Nimai said, what are you doing? You're a great scholar. Why are you bowing to me? He said, I know who you are. I know what you're doing. And Nimai revealed his mission to him, said, don't tell anyone. That Digvijay Pandit, who used to travel all over India with elephants and followers and a big fanfare, he gave up everything and just wandered as a mendicant, absorbed in thinking of this beautiful Nimai. So this After this, everybody in Navadvip considered Nimai a big hero. And not only was he the most beautiful, Cupid-like boy, everyone would stop to stare at him, he was so beautiful, but now they knew he had saved Navadvip, and he had defeated the greatest scholar. And so even the great Bhattacharyas there used to offer their obeisances to Nimai when he'd walk around town. And this Srila Ishwarapuri, the great pure devotee, had written this book, and then he offered to Nimai, he said, please, would you look at this? Tell me if you can find some places that need to be edited. So Nimai said, how can I go through your book? You're a great pure devotee. I can't say anything about your book. Well, what is my qualification? No, you look. So Nimai looked it over, and the next day he came back, and he told Srila Ishwarapuri, I found something. This particular verb you used here, it's the wrong one. You should change it. So then Srila Ishwarapuri took the book and went home, and the next day he came back after some research, and then he told Nimai, he said, actually you're wrong. I used the right verb, I checked it. And Nimai was very happy to be defeated by his future spiritual master. So when he then met Srila Ishwarapuri again in Gaya, that's the place you go to offer a pinda, and you do the shraddha, you make offerings to your forefathers in that place. So he went to honor his father and offer the shraddha ceremony to his deceased father. And there he met Ishwarapuri. And he took initiation from him. He surrendered to him. And then he came back. When he came back to Navadvip, he was completely changed. No longer did he have the swagger that he had when he left. Because people used to cross the street to get away from him. They'd see him coming down one side of the street, and so they wouldn't have to run into him because he'd challenge them. Say, what'd you learn in school today? And they'd say something, they'd say, you don't know anything. And he'd tear them apart. And so even as devotees, they didn't know he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but they knew there was something special about him. And they were all thinking, if he ever became one of our members of our congregation, we could really spread Krishna consciousness. They didn't know who he was. So now when he came back, he was just running around doing service for all the devotees. Can I carry this for you? I'll bring whatever you need for your puja. And all the devotees, oh, Nimai, it's okay. But Nimai was now completely a changed person after he had met his spiritual master. And now he was starting to exhibit symptoms of separation from Krishna. And he began to pine for Krishna, so much so that one day, as he was asking the question, he was asking everyone, where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? And Gadadhar Pandit said, he's there within your heart. So Nimai began to clod his chest. He wanted to tear his chest open to find Krishna. He said, no, that's okay. He calmed him down, and Mother Sachi saw this and said, you stay with him always. So now Nimai, living in Navadvip, became, as Prabhupada writes in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, a God-intoxicated youth. And then he started his nocturnal kirtan. Now something you have to know about the nocturnal kirtan, that they would chant all night long in Srivasangam. And they would go inside Srivas Thakur's house and they'd lock the doors. And only pure devotees could come inside. They wouldn't allow anybody else because outsiders would contaminate the mood of the kirtan. But keep something else in mind. It's not that they slept all day long. They performed this kirtan for 1 year, every night. But the next day, all of them went out as fresh as anything. They went out and did their work, and they performed all their duties throughout the day. They didn't sleep for 1 year by the empowerment of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in that kirtan, every night, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would dance with his devotees. And they would sing this Prem Sankirtan and go into the ecstasy of love of God. And one night, when they started the kirtan, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stopped it. He said, I'm not feeling any Ananda today. The usual Ananda is not coming to me. There must be some impure person in this house. And Srivas Punima said, probably, I don't think there's any impure person. They looked around, they found his mother-in-law was there behind one of the baskets hiding. He said, out, take her out. She can't stay in. And then they started the kirtan again. And another day, a pure brahmachari came to Srivas and he said, I really want to see the kirtan. He said, well, who are you? He said, I'm a brahmachari. I come from a Brahmin family, and I only drink milk. It was his reputation. He was so simple, so austere. He only drank milk. I said, okay, you can come in. I'm sure this is okay. And so Mahaprabhu started his kirtan. He stopped. He said, I'm not getting the usual ananda. There must be some impure person here. I said, no, Mahaprabhu, no impure person. Only this one brahmachari, but he only drinks milk. He said, throw him out! All the babies in the world should come in then. This is not the qualification for pure devotional service, some kind of mundane austerity. And he said, this person, throw him out. So he kicked him out. And as this brahmachari was walking away, he said, I saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Even though I'm now outcast from this group, he said, I saw the beautiful golden dancer. And he felt this appreciation for Mahaprabhu in his heart. And Mahaprabhu, being omniscient, being the super soul in everyone's heart, then understood this and said, you come back. He knows the heart of every living entity. So at the end of 1 year, he sent the devotees out. He said, you go out in the street and you chant this kirtan for the benefit of everybody. And this was, his mission is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is brought out by our Goswamis, the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. They were like miners. They went, Nana Shastra Vicharanaika Nipanosha Dharma Samstapako. They went through all the Shastras, and one of the things they did, for instance, I mentioned the Laghu Bhagavatamrita, they revealed the quality, the character of various incarnations of the Lord, the time that they appear, and similarly they showed through the Shastra the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 11th canto, Karabhajana Muni especially mentions the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his activities in this world. So there's several verses there. One of them, he says, Deyam sada paribhavagnam abhishtadoham tirtasparam shiva varinchi nutam sharanyam vrityartiham pranatapala bhavabdipotam vande mahapurushate charanadavindam. He mentions that this Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Mahapurush. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And if you worship his lotus feet, then it is rightly done. So he says, Teyam Sada. This is the place where you can put your attention always. And this is the problem in the material world. Everybody's looking for a satisfactory place to put their attention. An object that they can think of that will satisfy them. What are some of the things that people think of that they think they'll find satisfaction? What's something that people meditate on here in the material world?
Money.
What about the Golden State Warriors? Some people meditate on them. Or a particular player like Steph Curry. They could put a big picture and they wear a Steph Curry shirt. He's a famous superstar athlete, so I'll think of Steph Curry. And you get a little satisfaction out of that for a while, but it won't satisfy your soul. What are other things that people think about?
Money.
Money, yeah. And everybody knows money can't buy me love. The Beatles said it way back when. And everybody knows that, that's a dead end. But there's all kinds of objects everyone's trying to find satisfaction of thinking of. This is the plight of the material world. Everyone's looking everywhere, and they'll meditate on something, and then they soon feel dissatisfaction after some time. What they accepted, later on they reject. A man sees a woman and thinks, he's the woman of my dreams. When I first started doing Sankirtan, the first time, 1973, I was going to Market and Powell in San Francisco, and we had Reservoir of Pleasure. And I was distributing those pamphlets along with incense. And I always remember this because I just joined the movement. I was a brahmachari who was down there distributing, and there was a couple there, a young couple. And I showed the guy a Reservoir of Pleasure. And I was saying, see, this is the Reservoir of Pleasure. And he pointed to his girlfriend and said, I have my own Reservoir of Pleasure. And I was thinking, that's complete nonsense. And it was. it was like he's in total Maya. I guarantee you they're not together now. I mean, and if they are, they really don't like each other that much. And so this idea, you know, this is my reservoir of pleasure, everyone's looking for this. But Karabhajan Muni says, Jayam Sada. You can always meditate constantly on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's lotus feet, and you'll feel complete satisfaction. And not only that, he says that you'll get paribhavagnam. It means by doing that, by thinking of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you'll be relieved of all the embarrassments of material life. It's an embarrassing situation to accept the body as a self. People get sick, and then they try to pretend I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay, and then they drop dead. And it's an embarrassing situation. And on the positive side, he said, abhishtadoham. When you meditate on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you fulfill your heart's desire, what you're always looking for. In fact, one of the names of Lord Krishna is Vanchahatita. Everyone say Vanchahatita. So Vancha means desire, right? And Atita means above and beyond. And so Krishna is the one that if you go to Krishna and you worship Krishna, he'll fulfill all your desires beyond what you could have expected. And so this Abhishtadoha means he fulfills your innermost desire in a way that you can't even imagine. So this is the worship of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And the verse goes on, and there's several more verses where he's describing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And the Goswamis brought all these verses out to show that this Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the same Krishna who's appeared in this age. And of course, Krishna Varnam Tvasha Krishnam Sango Pankashtra Parshadam Jagnai Sankirtana Prayer Yajanti Hi Sumedasa. It's very specifically mentioned the Sankirtan, that the Lord comes in this age to propagate Sankirtan. And also, he's Krishna, but he's not blackish. And he's a golden color.